Hi there, I'm here with Gershon Nimbalker, Advocacy Manager for Baptist World Aid and also lead author of the Ethical Fashion Guide, now in its 4th edition. Welcome, Gershon.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Melody.
Well, I guess the first question I need to ask you is, why the Ethical Fashion Guide? How did it start?
Yeah, Baptist World Aid is an organisation that had been looking at issues of poverty and exploitation for many years. And as we were wrestling with that and wrestling with what we were seeing in communities, one of the things we discovered through our research is the way that Australians predominantly come in contact with issues like slavery and child labour is not by walking down the street, it's through the stuff that we buy. And we wanted to do something about that. We wanted to give consumers the ability to make choices that liberated people from slavery and poverty.
It's actually really difficult to do, isn't it? Because, you buy a clothes from a rack, you don't actually realise that there's all these other things that come to make that clothes and all the other ethical dilemma.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of us are conditioned just to expect that when we go into a store, the decisions we make are based on the quality of the product, how it looks on us, and the price, and probably price most importantly. I think that started to shift. There was this enormous factory collapse back in April 24th, 2013. A garment factory collapse and took with it 1,134 poor garment workers. And I think those images filled our screens and filled our imaginations and got people asking the question, who was making my clothes and how are they being treated? And every year since then, we've seen that companies have responded to this new wave of consumer pressure, calling on them to do better.
I actually do remember that happening as well. And I do wonder, though, your fashion guide, what do you actually judge the companies on?
So we grade them from A to F on the strength of their labour rights management systems. So we look at 4 key pillars that we think make up a strong system. So the quality of their policies, so what do they expect of their suppliers? How well they know their suppliers, because of course if you don't know who your suppliers are, you can't make sure workers are being protected. And we look at that from farm to factory, so the entire supply chain. Then we look at the strength of their monitoring and how well they build relationships. And the final thing we look at is the levels of worker empowerment. So are workers being empowered? Do they have a voice? And most critically, are they being paid what we refer to as a living wage? So that's a wage that's sufficient for them to live themselves and their families out of poverty.
And are they?
Well, that's the terrible news, right? Only 7% of companies could demonstrate that workers at any stage of their supply chain were being paid a living wage. So that means the vast majority of workers in the world, in the garment industry, are just not being paid enough to get off the poverty line.
Man, so, we buy that $10 t-shirt and we're actually contributing to, you think you're contributing to someone's economy and someone's livelihood, but you're not actually doing that.
Yeah, it's this tension, right? Because these jobs are often the best alternative to a life of even more crushing poverty. But they're still not decent jobs a lot of the time. So, I think they want the jobs, they want the taxes that these companies pay, they want the investment, they want the technology. But what we also want is there not to be exploitation tied to it. I think we can do both. We can provide decent jobs that contribute to the economy, as you were saying, but also pay workers enough to see themselves lifted out of poverty.
Now, there is this perception, though, that if you pay a fair wage, that $10 top is going to be $100 or something like that. Is that true?
Yeah, what we find, what the research is suggesting is that the labour cost that goes into most of our goods is only a small fraction of the price. Most of the price is taken up in markups, in transport and distribution and all sorts of things. So, for instance, to pay workers in Bangladesh a living wage may cost as little as just 40 cents extra per t-shirt. So that's completely affordable, right? If you can get the money to them, it's a huge difference. Yeah.
So, I wish you all the best in trying to do that kind of advocacy, because I know that since the fashion guide has come up, you've seen vast improvements. Supplier transparency went from 49% to 81%.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's huge, right?
Raw materials, 17%, 45%.
Yeah.
So, but do you think there's more to go?
Oh, absolutely. So it's one of the great changes. In the last 4 years that we've been doing the report, companies have gone from telling us that it's not their responsibility to look at where their fabrics are coming from or where their cotton is coming from. And now,
how is that not?
Yeah, I know. They're selling the product, right? It's their product, and they're intentionally seeking low costs and operating in countries where there's huge risk to get those low costs. But now 45% of companies, as you say, are tracing where their cotton's coming from. So they've accepted, hey, if there are child labourers here or there is slavery there, then we have a responsibility to go find it, look at it and do something about it. But still, as I said before, only 7% of companies know where their cotton is coming from. So that's a huge deficit that needs to be, it needs to be filled.
So do you think that this improvement that you've actually seen is a direct result of producing this fashion guide?
I think it's a bunch of factors. Like, I think the fashion report has been a huge part of that. We hear companies tell us that they've loved being able to be benchmarked, that they've enjoyed working with us and getting insights on where they need to move to. So companies like Cotton On and David Jones and Kmart, we've worked really closely with to see the quality of their supply chain systems improve. David Jones has gone from an F grade to a B+ grade, Cotton On from a D to an A-, and Kmart's now in the B range. So we've seen these huge moments of progress that we've helped contribute to, but there's also been good leaders in some of those companies that just want to make sure that they're not contributing to the exploitation. We've seen huge amounts of consumer pressure. We've seen consumer movements like the fashion revolution be built up, and there's lots of media pressure on companies these days. I think that's all good. The new thing that's happening is that governments around the world are starting to call companies to take actions themselves. So I think that'll be a new wave of increased improvement.
So, final question. What if there is one thing now that you can see improve in this whole issue? What is the one most important thing that you want improved?
I'd love to see workers everywhere being paid a living wage. That just to be the commitment that companies choose to make, that consumers choose not to walk past, to say, I will purchase from companies that are committed to paying a living wage, even if that means slight increase or even substantial increase in the cost of the goods that we're buying. Because it's just not fair, right? In a world of such wealth that we're willing to buy things that are made by people that are being exploited, we can do better. We can afford to make sure that everyone lives lives of dignity.
Because, we are living in a very affluent society, so
Absolutely.
there's actually probably enough to go around.
More than enough, I would say. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Gershon.
Thanks, Melody. It's a pleasure.